We're proud of her.
Very good.
Yeah, she signed up and took the initiative and did it all herself.
Oh, that's even better.
I didn't know it, but she came home from career day and was like, I signed up to be a volunteer for this day camp and I have an interview on this day. I'm like, okay.
And I was a little worried because I thought I applied for when I was at Camp Kintail because I just got back from Camp Kintail at 3. So I was a little worried, but then I was like, oh, phew. It's not.
And my turds are constantly asking how they want to make more money doing stuff. And we're like, well, you could do this. Well, am I going to get paid? No. So tonight at dinner, we were telling him, I can't remember what Alex said. He said something and I'm like, and Christy's like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start billing you for all the stuff that you use. Mm-hmm. Electricity, water, everything else. And you can just see how much money you're already making as it is. And then we'll go from there.
How in debt you are.
Exactly.
No.
Oh, yes. How is my boyfriend?
Kind of being a little bit of a baby recently. He seems to cry about a lot of things. Although, and okay, yesterday was
his girlfriend. Jeez.
Yesterday was such an interesting day. So I'm at work. I'm dealing with stuff to try to end school. I get the phone call from Christy's grandfather saying he found Ruby. Come home, deal with that, come back. Alex has a double header. So we basically throw food down their throats, go to the game. The first game went fine. Second game starts up. It starts raining. Now, this is around 8 o'clock on the night before school lets out. And they're like, okay, there was lightning, so we have to pause the game. But instead of calling it, we're just going to postpone and see if the rain will come through. And I'm like, it's 7 and 8 years olds. The night before school lets out. Just call the friggin' game. It's at that point, Nicholas has kind of not been feeling great and walks over and starts vomiting everywhere, mainly mucus. So grandparents take him home. But before that happens, we have this guy walk over to us and go, are you Nicholas's parents? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, well, I've been watching him over there play. And his body type, and I'm a coach for the Harker Heights Knights Junior Football League, and I really would love to have him. And we didn't
Strange
ask.
man comes up and says he's watching your child. Sounds
I know, right?
Yeah. Really. Did he at least give you candy?
No. And we didn't ask. I didn't think to ask because I was like, I don't know where I was, but. Of course, the question is going to come up, is this full-on football or is this flag football? If it's flag football, I'm okay with it. If it's full-on football, and this is where one of those things where Christy and I are completely different. She's like, I think if he wants to play, and I'm like, no, he is not playing football. I'm not doing it.
Have you met the kid?
It's too dangerous.
But like full-on flag is full-on, do you mean like tackling?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm with you on that one.
See, like, I'm in that boat. I don't want either of my boys to play football. My brother is in that boat. He used to coach and play football. The head coach for our high school refuses to let his boys play football. All because of all the crap that's coming out with all the injuries and stuff. My brother told me one of the little baseball players on Jameson's team had to sit out, 9 years old, had to sit out for like 3 or 4 weeks in the fall because he was playing football and got a concussion at 9 years old.
Wow.
And I'm like, you know what? Until they make some major changes to this game, it ain't happening.
Major changes.
So, and what's funny is there are a lot of professional athletes, professional football players coming out and saying the same thing. They're like, no, I'm not going to let my kid play football. So.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Jennifer, you're cool to run the show, right? Like
yeah, I mean, y'all are gonna have to help me remember the story and how to pronounce it since I didn't actually listen to it, read it.
Oh, geez, yeah, we're gonna completely butcher the names then, because I was looking back through the Wikipedia page and I was like, I think I remember how that sounded.
You got what? Zaylee, Zane, Amari.
Sorry. Enoch.
Some of them
Come
aren't
on.
too bad.
None.
Saren. Binta.
Yeah.
What?
Mama.
Mama Agba?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
like all you really need to know.
Yeah,
Orisha.
hopefully so. So
Come on, guys. If I can do this, you can do this.
I'm just saying I haven't actually heard them pronounced out loud, so I'm just guessing.
Okay.
You're
Yeah.
actually lucky, Jen. My biggest beef with this one was like the reader. You couldn't distinguish her voice from like different
really?
characters. All the characters sounded almost identical.
Yeah, you're right. There wasn't a lot of distinction in the characters.
Mm-hmm. They're
Yeah.
pretty similar.
So, and I did have to stop from time to time. We're about to get into the show. I did have to stop from time to time and go, okay, who is this?
Mhm.
And then think about, okay, that's right. It's a conversation between these two. So, looks like Jennifer's got a crown.
See, and I like went, I don't care who this is.
Well, we know where you came down on the story, apparently.
Y'all are such haters.
I know, right?
I think it's because I like sped listened to it, and it was like, oh man, I can't really get into this. I'm just trying to get it done. And then we postponed the show for a month.
Yeah.
Bastards. You bastards.
There was no way.
Oh,
There was no way the show was going to happen then. It was just not going to happen. There was so much crap going on. So, but all right. I guess I'll go ahead and do the intro and we can get started. You ready? All right.
Hello and welcome to Marginally Geeky, episode 30. My name is Jennifer and I will be guest hosting the show tonight along with Eugene Stevens
Howdy.
and our friends in Canada, Chris and Ray, who is invisible right now,
Sean.
and as well as Sean, who is also
Who is
invisible
also
if you're
invisible,
watching.
but here.
yeah, I'm around. I might. My batteries are dying. I might be in and out in a second.
Just a floating voice. So tonight we're talking about Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Hope I said that right. I was the one that suggested this book, so I'll be leading the discussion. And I guess everybody here had a chance to read it. You guys all listened, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I was the only one that physically read it, and it was a very long book, which we had a little discussion about during the pre-show. So what did you guys think of the book other than it was very long?
I'll jump in. When I first started reading the book, I was pretty sure I wasn't going to like it, mainly because the book talks about magic, and I wasn't sure at first when they said magic. I wasn't sure. I was like, is this like a theory of magic? Like, is it just, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't realize, I didn't know if it was like magic. And when real magic starts happening, then that's when I started getting buy-in. I was like, oh, okay, so this is cool. So there is actual magic to, this place. Because it talks about how the book starts off talking about, magic went away. And there are people who feasibly could become magic, users, but they're not able to. And once again, I was like, well, is this, is this standing in for something else? Is it actual magic? And then, like I said, once we get to the part where like spells and stuff start actually happening, that's when I started kind of getting interested in it. So overall, I enjoyed the book. I did do some research after the fact, and we'll get to that in a little bit, I guess, when we get to that part of the topic. But I was kind of hoping for a little bit a little bit more from the story, kind of background wise. It's interesting why she wrote the book. But yeah, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. And honestly, it really parodies something else that I absolutely love, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's very
too.
okay. I'm glad. I thought I was going to ask if anyone else has watched Avatar, because I've very much got that idea. Okay, there's magic. There's lots of different types of magic, but instead of being set with a mainly like Japanese, Chinese, Asian culture background, everything kind of being centered on that. It's like, okay, so let's move it to Africa, and we'll incorporate that, and we'll center it around that. And that's very much the type of. I think that's why I liked it, is because it felt kind of like that, just in a different setting. So completely different characters, but I did I liked it for that aspect. So.
Okay, Chris and Sean, what do you think?
It took me a while to get into the book. I liked that it was a completely different type of mythology that I'd never heard of before. It did remind me, especially at the beginning when on the audiobook, she goes through the different types of magic and then who the god was of the magic and what they could do. It did remind me of The Last Airbender a little bit. But it was really intense. The book is really heavy. I don't know if I enjoyed listening to it so much as I just wanted to know what happened, because I was invested in these characters. It is a really long book. They're children. I have a hard time when kids go through hard things and it just never lets up. But
No.
So it was hard to listen to. Some parts I almost cried, in some parts, but that's probably why she wrote it, to provoke that kind of response. And but it was very, very interesting, because it was a whole different type of mythology that I didn't know anything about, which was really, really cool. And she's very descriptive, and she's a really good writer. And it's her first book. Like, it's amazing that it's her first book. She's only 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the biggest YA book deal in American history or something like that. Like, it's just it's crazy big. And
it's already been optioned for like a movie and everything else.
I think Fox
like
bought it out.
Yeah.
Wow.
That doesn't mean
she was a huge hit immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me a really long time to get into it. There's a lot in it, and it's really intense. And it has the Hunger Games feel to it with the kids. And it was just, a lot of it was just, I really like happily ever after endings. So this one was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Gotta wait.
I can't. There were a couple times where I didn't want to listen anymore, but I'm glad that I did. And her new one, Children of Vengeance and Virtue, is out now, I think.
Is it?
I think so. So be interested to listen, see where it goes from that, where she takes it. I don't want to be disappointed, because there's been so many YA books, trilogies and series that start out so great, and then you read the last book and you're like, what the fuck?
Divergent series.
Yeah, like what
Hunger Games.
That, where all of a sudden it just wraps up in a chapter and you're like, what? All of that for that. Yeah. So I'm hoping that's not what happens with this.
Team Peter. Anyway.
We were just talking about what everyone thought of the book overall.
Yeah. It was.
You didn't finish it.
I didn't finish it. I finished it with Chris telling me what was going on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I had a really hard time listening to this one. And I think this is one of the books that I'd rather have it in my hand and reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I probably would have burned through it, because it was a very intriguing story. I liked the flow. Like, it did seem to go places, and there was a lot going on, but I had a really hard time listening to her read it. And I don't know why. Like, I even tried, like, she speaks really slowly to make sure that you can hear what she's saying, I think. But I had to speed it up to about 1.4, 1.5 in order to actually get through as much as I got through. because I found myself just like almost put me to sleep.
Yeah,
Jeez.
it was very melodic.
No,
It's
I
an
was
accent I'm not used to. It's nice.
ready to go to sleep. I'm like, okay, all right, well, gotta listen to that chapter again. It was, yeah, but overall, like I said, a really intriguing story, very interesting. I prefer it as paperback in this case.
See, and I thought so. I listened to the book and I listened at twice the speed, which is the first time I've ever done anything like that. So it was like
Really?
being
This is the first time you've ever done double speed, huh?
I always listen to single speed and just enjoy the nuance. This one I like downloaded into my freaking brain just to get it done, Ray. But I got through the whole thing.
Some people are more committed.
Yeah, man, if I'm going to be on a show, I'm going to know what I'm talking about. But the story itself, I just kept thinking, man, this is something I would have read in like grade 11 or grade 12 because it would bring up a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
As for something that I would read now, no, probably not. It's I found the story, like after all the stuff that's come out over the last 2 decades or whatever, I found the story very what's the word? Like it was followed a formula that I could point out right away. So I'm like, okay, when's this going to happen? And downloaded my brain after like 4 or 5 hours. Oh, there it is. And then when's this going to happen? Like I was predicting it.
Yeah.
And it's just probably because there's been so much of this stuff out there. And I don't blame the author at all because she's a young author. She's probably been raised with all this stuff already. So in a subconscious level, you're going to be following certain storylines without even thinking. But it had its intriguing points and all that. Now, the only Airbender thing I've ever seen was the movie, and it sucked.
No. That doesn't count. That has nothing to do with it. Just pretend that we don't talk about that.
Okay. Well, that's the only thing for Airbender, so I'm gonna have to take your word on that. But I used to read a lot of series that were focused on magic or the lack thereof and stuff like that, and yeah, I could see similarities in this. So I didn't hate the story. I just, man, it was long. It was too formulaic for my liking anyway, because I was kind of predicting what was happening next and where it kind of logically had to go. So there wasn't really any surprises for me anyway.
Can I jump in real quick? So you were talking about it being very formulaic. I kind of thought so as well, but I actually was, before I had done some research on the writer, I was actually looking forward to that, mainly because I was like, is this? I was, and like I said, I was a little let down. I want to say I was a little let down to it, but I was really hoping that this was written from someone's perspective that like was completely and totally like, she like grew up in Africa and that was her life and everything else, and coming up with the story. And I thought, oh my God, isn't that interesting that someone from such a different culture came up with a story that is so much like so much other stuff that that's around. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, that maybe that was the case, was that being isolated from a lot of the other stories, well, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and coming up with a story that's so close to it just because of commonalities of how we tell stories as human beings and everything else. And that wasn't the case. That's fine. That was a letdown that I kind of set myself up for. And not to take away anything, but to jump in, the reason why she wrote the book is because of all of the police shootings and stuff that were going on in America, and she felt helpless. And it definitely, I understand, knowing that, I can, looking back through the book, looking through that lens at the book, I'm like, okay, I understand like why you wrote it and your perspective on it. Like I said, I guess I was just kind of hoping for a situation that brought humanity together, because it showed how alike we are, that someone from a completely different culture would come up with a similar story from people, from other cultures and stuff, and shows that we're all very, no matter where you come from, we're all still human beings. And unfortunately, it was written from the perspective of, yeah, human beings are pretty shitty to each other. So I'm just like, well, that kind of sucks. So
Kind of like The Power.
yeah, little bit.
Well, I liked the book, and I think I mentioned this in the pre-show, but I physically read it, and I got through it pretty quick just because I was like so enthralled with the story. But I do think it would have been more confusing listening to it because the names were, different, and also when there's different viewpoints like that, like in The Power, when you listen, I think it's a lot harder to track who's who or who's talking this time, since she switched between three of them.
You really needed a very good narrator for this story because of the three different points of views, and unfortunately you didn't have it for the audiobook on this one.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. I had to think about where we were in the story and what was happening. So when the next chapter hit and we were switching perspectives, I was like, some of them was fairly easy. If it was literally two of the characters were kind of having a conversation and we had to switch, I'm like, okay, well, obviously we're stepping into that other person. But there were situations where all three of them were involved, and it's like, okay, who
did they not announce the beginning of the chapter? Or
I don't.
Yeah, they did.
Did they? Okay. Well, maybe I just missed it whenever I was listening, but it took me a second to go, oh, okay, so we're now in her head, or we're in his head.
They would like when she would say chapter blah blah blah, it would
And
be
it would-
either
it would be the
Amari,
first three,
Zaylee, or
Okay, well then, yeah, I must have just missed it then.
Yeah, so I mean, I really liked the story, and I did feel like it was unique in that we don't get a lot of fantasy books with that culture, and especially, I mean, in America, that make it mainstream, and or North America in general. So I really liked having characters, from a different culture, different background, and I think it's good to see, main characters of color that are, powerful and that are doing things and celebrated. So I really liked that because a lot of the books we read today still have, the same type of person cast. So I think it was good to have a unique perspective with that. Since we were just talking about the narration, I'm going to go ahead and just jump into the next question I have. Why do you think the author doesn't use all the characters' points of view? She only uses three, specifically as Zelly, Inan, and Amari, which are, I guess, the three main characters. But Zane was in a lot of scenes, and there were a few other minor characters they could have gone with. Like, what do you guys think of that?
I would have been confused as all hell. I'll be honest with you. If we had jumped into more, I'm really glad she stuck to three. And I think the three that she picked are probably the right ones to go with. I see what you're saying about Zane. I can see how, because he was in a lot of it, and we got him filled in mainly from his sister, and then the eventual love interest. But yeah, there were times it was kind of like, it would have been maybe nice to kind of see what he was thinking from his perspective. But I think it would have really thrown me off, because I think I was a point where I was kind of afraid. Once I realized that we were switching characters, and I was like, oh my God, are we going to like go through, is this like a 1 day event? And like, we're just going through it through everyone's perspective. And I was like, oh man, it's going to be confusing as hell. But I'm glad it didn't do that. I like the fact that we just had the three different perspectives.
And it needed more than one perspective. I think if it was just one, if it was just Zaylee, it would have gotten almost boring, because there's so much happens to her. But it's not just her. Like, she's not alone in this. There's her brother, there's Amari, and there's Anand. And so it needed, for the amount of information, the amount of stuff she's given you, it needed. I'm glad she did 3 points of view. 2 would have been good too. It bothers me when there's only just one point of view. It gets really, it can get really boring. You're like, well, that's great, but I want to know more. I want to know the other side. So I liked the 3.
So
well, If you pick two, which two would you pick though?
I would pick Zaylee because obviously she's the main character.
Yeah.
And probably Anon.
I would have too. I was going to say, because
Yeah.
of all the characters, he went back and forth on so many things. He would have been I would have not have bought him as a character if I had not known what was going on in his head.
Yeah.
So for me, I look at the Bobiverse, right? You have very different characters, and you do see their point of view. What I will say that I liked about the Bobiverse that I didn't like about this book was, in the Bobiverse, they would complete a scene from one person's perspective, and then that scene was done, they'd go somewhere else, right? And then they'd come back and do something else from a different perspective. This one was a continuation of the same story from somebody else's head. So a scene just happens, and all of a sudden you're right into the same scene, right? It felt like we were still seeing it was from somebody else's point of view. And yeah, I thought that was a little. No.
Completes the scene for me. It makes it more round.
Yeah, fair enough. I liked it better the other way. So that way you could complete it and not have to think about, okay, where am I? Who's talking? What's going on?
Where am I?
I'm somewhere where I don't know where I am. Are there towels?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I think having it from multiple points of view help move this particular story along. I don't know that having Zane's point of view would have helped, since we did kind of get his feelings on things just because of how he reacted. But still, it might have given him more depth of character, I guess. So.
Well, he was also very outspoken. Like, he came out flat out and said what he was thinking. I don't like him. Don't trust him. Don't trust her. I'm here. I'm trying to save your butt. Quit screwing up. He was very forthcoming.
Stop messing. Stop not thinking.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that is one of the drawbacks to this book. The thing that I like the least is it is a YA book, and I've gotten I'm 41 years old. I have been introduced to Martin Banks, and I just want everyone to fucking just say what they would say. Hey, listen, you know what? I kind of like you. Can we maybe see where this goes? Instead of, well, I don't know. Does he like me? Do I really like him? Fucking just say it.
But also,
you're in a life and death situation. You may die 3 pages from now. Fucking say it.
But there were some extenuating circumstances here that would prevent them from actually being true about their feelings. At least Zelly and Anon.
Yeah, between those two, yes, I understand, because they were literally on opposite sides. But the brother and the sister.
You're talking about
Amari,
Yeah.
That one was annoying. That one was just like, oh, you both
just shut up and say it. Life's too short, damn it.
So, we kind of touched on this a little in the beginning, but what do you think? How do you think the author did in terms of world building? I mean, do you think she gave enough, background, or just kind of set the scene well enough? Or you think
I had a hard time putting it together. Like, the world, like, she gave snippets here and there, but the problem was that she's talking about different times, like what it is now, but it was really important of what it was, and I had a hard time putting it all together, like what actually happened, and like how was the world beforehand. Like, there was only a couple sentences or a paragraph about it, and then
she kind of drops it throughout the book, right? Like a flashback or a story, and
it's just.
But it's never from. It's always from. It came a lot from the king's point of view too, like and only.
I almost felt sorry for him.
Oh no, I hated that SOB the whole time. The king, I'm like, okay, I understand. A lot of bad shit's happened to you, but my God, you were talking about being able to see where things were going, foreshadowing wise. I was like, this son of a bitch is going to kill his son. It's going to happen. Yeah. I don't know when it's going to happen, but he's going to kill his son. So
I like maybe in her next book she'll go deeper into. What I would have liked is like maybe like the first chapter or something in the beginning where a character or something just lays out all of Orisha and how it happened, just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then leading up to this monarchy, they did it a little bit. I think I wanted more because it was fascinating, the mythology of it.
One of the biggest things you're talking about world building. I bought, okay, so we're in this small fishing village, and then we moved to the capital, and I could envision the fishing village and the capital. And then when they went to the mountain, I was like, okay, cool. This all makes sense. It all seems fairly realistic. Like this is set in a real world type location. And then we get to this place that's out in the middle of a freaking desert, and they pump in gallons, like they pump in an ocean, and there's like 13, 19 different. How big were these ships that they were supposed to be on? I'm like, what world is this?
Well, I honestly felt like that was because I re-listened to it again and again because I'm like, did I miss something here? What the hell's going on?
Yes, because there were like 19 ships, and I'm like, okay, well, this is set in a real world location, so I'm thinking like maybe like a big Astrodome type thing, and I'm like, these still have to be little bitty ships.
Yeah.
So like rowboats, I think, right?
I don't know. There's a whole like crew on these ships.
And they all have to, like, it was the amount of, it just seemed really unnecessary, especially with the amount of death. Like if they, like a moon is a month, and if somebody hasn't won anything in like several moons, it's like, well, how many, and you're having this every freaking night? How many people are dying? It's just really unnecessary.
That's a lot of death.
That's
a lot of death.
That's a lot of deaths, and it just that whole part. It was I didn't like that part at all. It was like a weird Mad Max in the Thunderdome sort of situation, and I didn't. It felt.
And then we go back.
It's a dystopian nightmare, you know.
Yeah, but it felt out of place. Like this feels like it could have happened.
Everything else felt like it could
that
have
felt like
because then they go back to the island, and the island seems normal, where the whole, you know, we're supposed to be, you know, bringing back magic, all of that. I'm like, okay, that could be a real location. It's just this one part that's just like, what?
Yeah, that one felt really.
It's like the island on Lost, and they just didn't explain it.
Just accept it.
Just accept that it's there.
Fair enough.
She made the diviners have this gorgeous deep dark skin and this brilliant white hair.
Yeah.
Like that's such a beautiful contrast in colors and the coiling and the way she described their hair, and she was very good at describing
the characteristics of
the people and things. I thought that was very beautiful, but
so if you go to cast it, you better hit those because that's something that's really important, right? So.
Yeah,
for sure.
48
But they probably won't.
But they probably
Okay, so let's talk some. Or do you have something else?
No, there is a white guy in the book, though.
No, I know, but I'm just being one of the main characters will all of a sudden be like.
Oh, I was gonna say they have to have some big name to tie it to. So Angelina Jolie is gonna be the main character and be like, what? Yes.
She's not young.
Yeah, that's the big thing. That's the first thing. She's not a teenager.
And then put her in blackface. That'd just go off real
that
well.
will go really well.
Oh no. Don't even joke about that.
Fire.
Let's talk about the characters. Obviously, they all changed a lot from beginning to end, and I can't decide who, I guess, underwent the greatest transformation, in my opinion. But I mean, there were times when I thought, you know, Anon was going to be a good guy, and then he was a bad guy, and then he was good. I don't know. And then Amari, you know, you could tell she was kind of on their side from the beginning, and then at the end, she's a lot stronger. And you know, Zele, just poor thing, went through like the ringer. So, what do you guys think? Like, what stood out the most with these, at least those three characters? The three we got the point of view for.
Anon waffled too much for me. Like, he's like, okay, Yes, he was very disappointed because it's like, okay, because at one point in the book we're like, okay, so he's coming over, he's understanding his place in the world, and then we're like, oh, we get this idea that he wants to be king and he wants to unite the king, he wants to unite everyone. I'm like, all right, cool, I can start liking this guy. And I understand they were attacked and he basically had to act like he was still trying to please his father. I'm like, okay, cool, this is just a ruse. But then dude didn't follow through with it, and I'm just like, are you not going to like use your magic and like stop your father from literally carving maggot into her back? Oh, guess not. Guess we're cool with this, huh? And I'm
it was like how quickly he forgot all the stuff he had just learned.
And then he's like, no, I promise. And I'm just like, fuck you. The
character arc there is kind of a weird one. It's spoiler alert if you haven't watched Game of Thrones. Who has not watched Game of Thrones?
I haven't watched it.
Neither have I.
Never mind. There's a character in there where the arc is going a certain way, and then at the end, it doesn't go the way you think, and it's like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of that is for me.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I know you do.
Great analogy for those of us who are.
His was the character I think had the most potential for change, but didn't. Like I said, he waffled too much. He went back and forth too much. What is his sister's name?
Amari.
Amari. I think she had the biggest character arc because, granted, we see her through the eyes of being very weak and very timid. And by the end of the book, like, she steps up and fucking kills her father. And I'm just like, fuck yeah. Way to go. But yeah, I think she had the biggest arc.
And she made a lot of sacrifices throughout the book too. Something that she was very new to the cause, but it's like she embraced it because she just knew it was the right thing to do.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I liked her character so much, because she, as soon as she saw, well, what's going on is wrong, and found what she should be doing, she stuck to her guns the entire time. And that's one of the reasons I liked her. Once again, going back to her brother, one of the reasons I disliked his character so much. So.
Yeah. What's that?
Well, she liked Amari.
I liked Amari. For the same reasons that Eugene is saying it. Because Zaylee didn't have a whole lot of...
I was going to say...
She was the same stubborn, kick-ass, pull no punches kind of girl throughout the whole thing. And then Zane was the big, overprotective brother through the whole thing. And Anon, he was the biggest piss-off for me. Was how we went back and forth, especially at the end.
Yes.
Especially because he had so much... he could have done away with the whole room like that. Like he could have... something like that, and it could have happened, and he didn't. It was huge disappointment.
So, I'll be honest, I was not entirely sad. I mean, I'm just like, geez, how the hell do you kill your own kid? That's just how much of a bastard you are. But maybe you kind of had it coming. Like, maybe you should have stuck to your guns and like did what you said you were going to do instead of faltering. But whatever.
You guys need to watch Game of Thrones.
I'm going to. It's going to happen.
I started it last weekend.
The opinion.
Like from the very beginning?
Yeah. I got through like 8 or 9 episodes, so.
Oh, God. I got a long time before I can explain that.
I know. I think I know what you're talking about already, but anyways.
I told her, and I told her something that I thought about, because we had this conversation at EGX. I was like, here's the thing. Maybe it was you, maybe it was someone else I was talking to. I was like, here's the thing. I'm going to go back and rewatch the whole thing. But I was so worried the first time watching it. I was like, okay, I've got to make sure I keep track of this person and what's going on. And now I'm just like, no, 75% of these people are going to be dead by the end. Just let it happen. Just freaking sit back and watch it. So I'm like, all right, cool. This may be a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Maybe I'll enjoy it the second time.
I mean, I enjoyed it the first time, but literally I was like, oh, I like that character. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Don't get attached.
Don't get attached. So.
Sean,
you were saying you have a different opinion?
Well, it's... Okay, so Amari, for me, was the one that changed the most, and that's... I think that's pretty obvious. But Anon, you guys are like really bashing on Anon for his decision, but I got to give it to the author that every decision that when Anon flip-flopped, as you want to say, was well thought out, and she explained why he was changing the decision. And I can't argue with some of the stuff that he was thinking. Now, some of the results, like, yeah, you don't let someone get tortured and all that. But for him to want to get rid of magic entirely, I could see why he would want to do that.
Well, I could see it too. I just didn't want him to do that.
Well, there's a different. Yeah.
Exactly.
But she did a really good job of explaining
which is
Anon's character and why he was changing his mind. So to me, it was like, yeah, I may not agree with it, but I get it. Okay.
I think it's just because it happened so quickly, right? Like,
yeah,
he finally came around to
to
magic. Yeah, and then it was like, oh no, just kidding. It's scary, and I don't want to have anything to do with it, except I have it. So.
Well, seeing someone like go nuclear and like about to like roast a whole bunch of people, yeah, that might change your mind on, maybe this isn't safe to have around. And he was trying to be a good king. He wanted to do right and protect his people. And you know what? That I can understand some of that.
It's the way he's going about it, though, that by allowing certain things to happen, right?
Well, yeah, I don't agree with that, but his end goal, like the ends justify the means.
But like by burning down an entire city in order to be a good king, I don't know if I agree with that. Like, it just.
But
yeah,
even
he
looking
didn't treat
at
his people very well.
Look at Saren, the king, and the motives of why he started it. Like Saren was trying to unite both the elite and the magic people, and it was the Magi's that some of them went rogue and, no, we don't want to be united, and toasted his family. Guess what? If my family got burned in front of me from people that I was trying to help, I would burn the world. And I can understand that decision, and that's what led him down the dark path. Where Anon, he's trying to protect the people. Now he's not there yet. He's not the king yet. So he's got to bow down to certain situations and all that. But in his mind, getting rid of magic was the only way of doing it. And that was like even Saren, when he killed off all the Magi, he said he didn't kill off the diviners. He didn't think it was right to kill off people that didn't have magic yet. Now, a class system developed from that.
Yeah.
And eventually he went totally bonkers and said, I should have gotten rid of all of them. But that initial decision was, no, I want to get rid of magic. I want to get rid of their ability to have magic. But people that don't have magic, the potential to have magic, don't need to die. He separated them. Even
True,
at that
but
point.
he also taxed the hell out of them, and like they
Over
said, they're like,
time.
do you think Father knows anything about this? Talking about going back to the massive deaths in the water arena, and they're like, I'm sure Dad knows about this. He's just not willing to say anything about it.
Oh yeah, it's a slippery slope. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
And I think that was the road he was on. But that initial thing, I could literally understand it. Watching your family burn by people you're trying to help, it would destroy me too.
Oh yeah, yep.
I just don't know that I'd blame an entire group of people for the actions of a few. Like, I would probably be emotionally distraught, but I don't know.
Yeah, and that's
you gotta realize
something
it's a
that
faction.
Yeah, but seeing your family burn up, you're not going to see clearly. And that's just, and I think that's how the story was kind of driven for him. Now he did the whole Darth Vader thing, or actually probably more of an Emperor Palpatine thing.
I was going to say more of a Palpatine.
Yeah,
Vader came back at the end.
Yeah,
when apparently Palpatine is going to as well.
Yeah, jeez. But what I'm just trying to get at is I understood because of the author and her writing was why the flip-flop happened in Anon's thinking, and I could even see the reasoning behind the initial decision of the king. Not afterwards. He was a total bastard, like new kids and then have them stab each other. Not cool, dude. Not cool.
We're starting.
But,
We're gonna start that.
What'd you say? Oh.
You're gonna start doing that one? Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna start that next week. So, Sean, if you guys want to start challenging each other,
Fencing. Cool.
Ye-
Okay, so that kind of brings up an interesting point. Why do you think Amari embraced the Magi's cause easier than Anon? And I think part of it is their upbringing was so different, right? Like he was groomed to be king, and she was kind of just treated as this delicate flower that needed to defend herself, but also wasn't going to have a position of real power, I guess.
well, she remembers
And
that.
so is it something in their head?
Sorry, you were cutting in and out there.
Oh, I was just saying, was it something in their personality or something else you think that makes them, kind of have these differing views on this?
For me, it was the threat and love of magic, right? So for me, she saw magic in her mom, and she loved the beauty of it, where Anon was more raised on fear and absolutely terrified of what the potential ugliness of magic could be. For me.
Yeah, they had two different, men are kings and women are married off to kings, right? Like they don't have any power to sit there and be proper and mingle. Like she was treated like how I remember reading most princesses were treated in any story like that, right? Like their mothers were always like, don't eat that, you're going to get fat. Don't say that, it's inappropriate. Just shut up and be seen. Don't say anything. Whereas, Anon's going to be king, and he had to understand why his dad was doing what he was doing. And so when Binta died right in front of her, her only friend that she was actually allowed to be herself around, because her mother like freaking micromanaged her within an inch of her life.
Mm-hmm.
I think she just snapped. I think it was like, that's it, I'm done.
Well, she saw the beauty of what magic could do.
When
right?
Binta's hands produced
she
that light.
sees that, and she sees how beautiful it is, and then
her dad just
see her dad snuffing that out, where Anon is more sees the ugly side of, and feels like it's a curse inside of him, right? So.
Yeah.
Don't really have much to add
Anything
on that
I would add?
Not really. I mean,
yeah,
Sorry.
I pretty much agree. I mean, I think too, just their personalities, she was more open-minded about stuff, and he was just kind of accepting of whatever he was told by his father. And they both kind of, at the beginning, she kind of struggled with, I think, certain things that she saw, like, oh, this isn't really happening, is it? But then once she realized it, she was like, oh shit, it is happening. We got to fix it.
She realized how sheltered she knew she was sheltered, but not to the degree that she actually was sheltered. And once she hit the real world and saw things, it was just like, holy crap.
Yeah, I didn't know people were that bad off.
Yeah, I didn't know clue, and she felt a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
There was a lot of guilt on her end for being a princess and being so privileged and not having to experience any of that.
And you could see the growth beginning at the very, very soon in the book. So not even just her running away from her dad and all that stuff. When she gives away the tiara, when she gives away the dress, those types of moves are like, she's growing, you can see it incrementally.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, for sure. So this is something that when I was reading back over the book, because I read it 2 months ago, and even earlier than what we originally planned, I had read it. So I was kind of refreshing online earlier this week. And so some of the recaps I read said that Anon died at the end, but I don't remember that. I remember him being saved by his sister, but a few of them said that he was actually killed by his dad. Do y'all remember that happening?
He
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 did.
died.
He
Oh,
died.
yeah.
I don't know why. I don't have a book because I borrowed it from someone. I don't know why I don't remember it that way. I just remember him like being attacked by his dad and then her stopping him. So
Yeah, because that's what sets her off. Is like she's like, nope, dad is not. Dad has to die now.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
okay.
if
See,
he can kill his son, he's not coming back.
Dangerous. Yep.
Yep.
Well, so I guess what that changes the whole ending for me because I went into the ending thinking the next book is going to be a battle between the two of them for power,
Mhm.
Anon and
Yeah.
Amari. But now if he's dead, that I don't know what to expect because
Well,
like I
yeah, they
said, I
wiped out
misremembered it.
most of the bad guys at the end of that one.
Yeah.
I think the next one will probably be depending on how well she has this planned out. The next one will be. It could be a lot darker, but I mean, it will. I would guess it's probably going to be, "Hey, magic's back.
Now
All
what?
right, there's a power vacuum. Who's going to take that over? Or is it going to be a bunch of magic users, or are all the magic users going to freaking turn on each other? Because I could see that happen too.
I have a feeling there's going to kind of come 2 or 3 factions out of this, where you're going to have one side that says, "Fuck it all." If you don't have magic, you're done.
Mm-hmm. I could see that.
Then you're going to have another, which is like, "Listen, we shall be peaceful," and then the other one's like, "I'm out. I don't want to be a part of either of it."
Yeah, I could see that too.
I would like to think Amari's going to step up and kind of bridge the two sides. But it also said that she got powers at the end of that one.
Yeah.
So
Very last.
I'm curious.
Yeah. The very
Yeah,
last
I'm curious as to how that happens to her.
Yeah, Zaylee wakes up and she's laying in Amari's lap, and Amari's got this white streak growing through her hair and crackling blue light or whatever in her fingers. So I was really excited about that. I'm like, yay! It's like Amari just
Which
worse.
I'm a little confused because she was around that scroll and she had it. So why didn't that wake up any latent powers she has? Does everybody get powers?
Well,
You know?
I
How
think,
old was she though?
no, I think she's the same age as Zaylee. She's 17.
Okay,
Yeah.
so should have already
Yeah.
shown
She's
up.
old.
Well, because Anon had just touched the scroll and it sparked something.
Yeah.
I think for her, it was so dormant, it needed a much more explosive kickstart.
Which would have been her killing her father.
Yeah.
That would be enough of a jolt.
Well, the other
Yeah,
thing
or
was
the
Or the
When
lost.
ceremony.
when Amari's introduced, like when they're sitting at that table with the other princesses and stuff like that, don't they talk about Amari
Her
not
skin's
looking like her father?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, her
It-
skin's a little darker for being.
I didn't catch that. Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so.
and they kind of alluded to that mom had slept around on dad.
Yeah, questioning her
They
legitimacy.
question exactly. That might come
might-
into the second book too.
Yeah.
If it does, let me know because I'm not going to read that second book.
So maybe both kids were
Yeah,
not
maybe
blood
so.
and
Yeah.
He's having an affair with the captain of his guard. What was it, Kaya?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it was interesting if they did have that ability, then why wasn't their hair white from the beginning, I guess. But I guess that happened after the purge and magic was taken, so maybe that's why.
we were just talking about like the second book and where the story's going to go. I kind of see Zaylee and Amari, right? I kind of see them fighting over which faction to go with or which side to go with, where Zaylee's going to be kind of drawn into maybe a darker side just because of the history, and Amari's going to be more of a, no, listen, we have to stay on the good side of this, and I could almost see a fight start, not a fight, but like a fraction start.
A rift between them two. Yeah.
You said you had a theory about Amari?
Oh no, that she had magic and that
Oh,
now
okay,
she's now a magi. She's
Yeah.
not just a courtesan. She's gonna kick some ass.
It's pretty cool.
But yeah, I can see the two of them because
Yeah.
Zaylee doesn't. Her parents are gone, and she's almost died twice now.
Well, and
Twice. That
Yeah.
fucks somebody up. That'll screw with your mind a little bit.
then Zane's going to be in the middle of it, and he's probably going to be picking
He'll pick
Amari's
Amari.
side, and that's going to piss Zaylee off huge. So
Yeah.
And it is a YA book, so I could see I definitely see that being the way it would go. Would be, you know,
Weird love triangle.
Well, I also read in
with
these.
siblings, you're gross.
No, Jamie.
No.
Not like that, but I mean like he's loyal.
Ew.
I knew what you were saying, Chris.
Thank you.
I also read a theory that maybe Zelly would go back to the underworld since she's a Reaper and talk to Anon and I don't know, bring him back or something. So who knows? Next book, if it's already out, then I'm gonna have to get on that.
Here, I'll take your quick look.
The cover for it when I was done reading it. So done reading the first one. So I don't know if it's out, but it's called Children of Vengeance and Virtue.
Well,
like
so
the-
the last question I had, and we kind of touched on this already, was that this book was obviously written as a response to social injustice. So do you think she did a good job representing that, and why do you think she made the story a fantasy novel versus something more, you know, real world relatable? This happens a lot, you know, where they do a fantasy sci-fi movie or story to represent something happening in the modern world. Hashtag 1984.
Star Wars.
I think she wanted to reach more people with it. And so fantasy is a big audience, right? So you can get that message across. It reminded me a lot of Nazi Germany, just the way that the king treated diviners like they were little vermin, and that the death of them was something that was like smacking a fly. Like, why would you mourn that? They're filth, they're dirt,
The maggots.
they're maggots. That's what it reminded me more of. But I understand why she was frustrated. She's frustrated.
To answer your question, I guess she did a good job of it. The thing is it starts off, it's not necessarily race, but yes, it is definitely racial in its beginning. But you know why she was writing it, but the book was more of for class, you know, different classes against each other. Had I not done some research after the fact, I would have not picked up why she was writing it. I would have seen it as it's not her frustration with you know, the police brutality. I would have picked it up as more so being frustrated with well, I mean, you know, I didn't realize that, you know, she had grown up mostly in America, but I would have picked it up as mainly being, well, if she is an American, then it's her frustration with, you know, basically the middle class going away, and it's like, you know, it's the rich versus the poor.
Yeah.
That's the way I would have
Economic
looked at
inequality. Yeah.
economic, exactly. I would have looked at it that as not and not picked up. Oh, so that's why you wrote it. So, I mean. And I agree. Doing it the way she did it, it can definitely reach a broader audience. Knowing why she wrote it, I can go back and see it, but that's not what the first thing I would have assigned to it. I would have been like, "Oh yeah, she's pissed that, you know, the poor keep getting poor and the rich keep getting richer." And yeah, I feel you. So,
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's what it felt like to me for sure. It was more the social class of everything. But I don't know. The broader stroke is definitely she reaches more people that way. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't know that I would have picked up on that specific issue, but I do pick up on themes of just inequality and injustice in any book I read, whether it's a fantasy book or fiction, nonfiction.
know,
I'm very sensitive to that stuff, but so obviously, yeah, I guess I make the parallel a little more to, you know, discrimination through race or gender or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I don't know that I would have specifically seen the police brutality thing had it not been for, you know, her afterward where she talks about it. But I do think it's a very, telling way to tell that story and to give that parallel. It's very timely for sure. Anything else anyone wants to add on the book?
Like I said, I enjoyed it just because of the parallels I found with other stuff that I really enjoyed. I'm a little torn as to whether or not I would continue on with the series. It sounds like there's at least two people on this panel that would rather not go forward with it. So if we do go forward with it, I'll join that trek. But if we don't ever get around to it, I'm not going to be heartbroken. So
I'd like to continue on with it. I'm going to need the book.
You're going to need the physical copy. Okay, that's cool.
Listen,
Hey, you need to finish the first one, you dumbass.
Damn.
I left out a lot.
Oh, I'm sure you did. The thing is, again, I need the book though, right? And especially for this one.
I liked her voice.
I didn't mind her voice. It just put me to sleep, and then I'd forget what the hell I was
Aw.
listening to.
She had a very sing-songy way of
Yes.
talking about dark, awful things happening.
I'm just interested in trying to see what I can do to get Sean to start listening to more stuff at 1/2 speed. If not, see if I can get him bumped up to 2. Come join the dark side. You will read through so much
I
more.
can't. I don't absorb it quick enough.
No, neither do I. I got it
I
up.
did, but it sounds like you're listening to chipmunks. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy. And
That's not
especially
possible.
True.
with this one, with the accent, holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh,
was-
that's okay.
It was tricky.
I will say one more thing. I did think it was kind of neat how she ended it, like how she ended the ceremony. It wasn't like we thought it would be, but she still, was able to do it. She figured out a workaround, and
Mhm.
she was
Mhm.
more powerful than she thought. So I liked that she, Zelly, was able to
I thought it was gonna be
save
one
the
of-
world.
I thought it was gonna be one of those books where, oh, well, there goes magic. Never mind. Everybody's equal and everybody's dead.
Yep. Well, you destroyed it, so the scroll, so it's
you go.
over.
Good going.
It's a really intense book. It's a very intense book. There's not a lot of let up, but it takes a while to get into it.
Now, do you think her mom was actually like the goddess, or was the goddess just manifesting looking like her mom?
I think it was just a manifestation.
I think so. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because they're all connected to a specific goddess, right?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty trippy.
Yeah. Interesting concept.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else?
Just,
Anyone?
Just a heads up. So, Children of Virtue and Vengeance comes out December 3rd.
Oh.
Is that the second or third one?
That's the second one.
Second one. Okay. December.
December.
Okay.
We're gonna have forgotten. all the
We're gonna
details.
we're gonna forget. We'll have to go back and listen to this episode and reread the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, we didn't really go through much of what actually happened in the book, like sequentially, like we do a lot of times. But
I like
Whatever.
this. I like this format better. I'm just saying. I'm really liking this. Hey, let's talk about ideas and not go all the way through it because I know
Yeah.
I'm the one that tends to do that. And I'm like,
No, not you.
no, oh man.
No.
so, what else have you guys been reading since
Ooh,
we
ooh,
last met
ooh.
2 months ago?
Okay, I was actually just looking through this. I've read 3 different books. One of them is called Delta V by Daniel Suarez. I love his other books. This one was kind of interesting. I really was not happy with it about halfway through, and then I'm still not exactly sure where I am at the ending. I'm really kind of hoping there's going to be another one to it to kind of round things out because the way it left it, I kind of want more, but I'm also like, maybe if there was a bigger story to this, I'd enjoy it more. So that was a little bit of a letdown. I also read Needful Things by Stephen King. I really enjoyed the book. I've never read it before. I know a little bit of the plot, but I really enjoyed this one. And then the last thing that I read was Outland by Dennis E. Taylor, who wrote the Bobaverse books. I'm really interested to see what other people here who've enjoyed the Bobaverse books think of it, because it's definitely his formula. Okay, let me put it to you this way. If you don't like task management, you're not going to like any of his books. If you like task management, like I do, I'm enjoying it, and I'm already chomping at the bit for the next one. I'm just like, well,
Nerd.
yeah. The whole thing, like, oh man, I've got to change the printers and figure out what I need to do next or whatever. And this one is very much that. It's very much, here's a situation. It's super crazy. It is in scope. I guess it's not as dark as the Bobaverse books, because the Bobaverse books was looking, no, it's never mind. They're both, they if you look at it the wrong way, it can definitely be a very dark book. On the other hand, it's just like, no, this is what we have to do to keep moving on as a species. So let's figure out what we got to do and do it the right way. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. And the fact that it was read by Ray Porter doesn't hurt one bit at all, because unlike the current book, I don't have to. He doesn't have to say what the name of the character is. I know exactly who's talking. So
Yeah.
Even with all the female characters, I still know exactly who's talking.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been reading.
Cool.
Anyone else read anything?
I read this wonderful little 92-page book. 92 pages. It was wonderful. It's called Half Spent Was the Night by Amy McKay. She's a Canadian author. She's got 4 books. She's a best-selling author too. This is kind of an in-between book between 2 different books. I've never read anything of hers before, but I saw this in like 92 pages. I can commit to 92 pages. See if I even like her. And I thought it was really cool. So it's a witch's Yuletide. So her books are all connected to this one particular witch and her life. And this, at this point in her series, she is an adult, she's in her 20s at this point. And it's all about the couple of days leading up to New Year's Eve and the 2 other witches she lives with and this masquerade ball that they're going to. I just thought it was really cool and really quick, 92 pages. And it's just enough to suck you in to want to know more. And it's not confusing though either. That was the other thing. It's like this completely separate little scene unto itself. So I know there's more stuff that happens in and around it, but it was a nice little snippet just to see her read her style of writing and just a little bit of an idea of the world she's built. So yeah, her first book is The Virgin Cure, which is about this house in Nova Scotia that was basically a brothel, and the idea was that if you slept with a virgin, it would cure you of your ailment, and so it centers around this one girl named Moth, and yeah, what happens to her. So I think I'm going to start with that. But yeah, Amy McKay.
Awesome. Ray, anything for you?
Well, as soon as I knew that I wasn't going to finish this book, I did start on Outland because yeah, it's why not?
Mm-hmm.
I'm intrigued. I'm only a couple chapters in. I restarted it with you.
Yeah.
And I like some of the theories that they're getting into, so I'm very curious. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
Okay.
Cool.
If we're either going to have to read this one for the group, or we're going to have a conversation afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I figured.
Sean, have you read anything on single speed lately?
Yeah. So I typically have a couple on the go. I listen to audiobooks to and from work, and then I also read a book at work for lunch if they ever let me. So that tends to go slower. Right now, I'm reading the second book from Red Dwarf series. It's a 4-book series. It's based off the television series. It's written by the writers for that show. And the first 2 books are written by there's two writers, Doug Naylor and Grant or Scott Grant or something like that. Anyway, the first two books are just hilarious. And if you watch the TV series, that they've drawn from the TV series and all the jokes are there, and I can picture it in my head when I'm reading it. So I'm just loving them. So I'm on the second book for that one. And then I just finished listening to it's The Terminal Man from Audible, and it's not the one by Michael Crichton. It's a different one. It's a bit older, and it brings up a lot of good questions. Basically, it's a guy duplicates all the synapses in his brain to figure out a couple like basic questions like what's it like after death. So he duplicated his brain, made 3 copies. He kept one as a control, so he didn't alter it, and the other 2 he altered. So one would be like life after death, so it had no biological functions attached to it. It wasn't never hungry, didn't want sex and all that stuff. And the other one, he altered it in such a way that it believed it could live forever. It had no fear of that kind of thing. Anyway, moving along the story, there's a bunch of murders, and he figures out it's one of his duplicates that has committed it. And it's trying to figure it out, like, how could I have done this, or any part of me and all that. So it's a really good storyline.
What is it called again?
Terminal Man. I've got it in my Audible list. I'll send it to you, Eugene. It's not the Michael Crichton one, though. It's a different one. But it was really neat because it's written with a lot of Canadian stuff. So it's like he's talking about restaurants in Toronto and like in Ottawa and stuff like that. And it's like, wow, I know every part of this he's talking about. And it's like so weird. Some of the technology is a bit dated. Mm-hmm. It's like when you watch a movie or something like that, and they're like, "Oh, it's 56K modem, it's so fast." Whoa! So there's a bit of that in it, but the storyline itself is really, really good. So I just finished that one when I found out one of the series that I love listening to, and I've listened to it as a podcast for like 4 or 5 times. It's Trader Tales, Tales of the Solar Clipper. It's a 6-book series. It's basically this kid on a planet. His mom's a lit professor or whatever, and she dies, and he basically is getting kicked off the planet. And he signs up for the merchant marines and gets onto a spaceship as a cook, and it's his life. Each book goes along a part of his life, and they go by share. So when he gets on, it's a quarter share, and then he moves up in rank, it's half share, and it's how he affects the crew that he's on. He's a smart guy, and eventually he makes it up to like captain share and owner share. And that owner share, the 6th book, kind of leaves off with a what the fuck moment. And that's, as far as I knew, that is how it ended. Then I've listened to it like 5 or 6 times or whatever, and then I like realized maybe I should look up this author. And it turns out he started a new series that takes off from where it left off, and he's already 3 books in. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, now I got to listen to everything again. So I'm 3rd book in again. But he started out as a podcast, so you can actually find it for free for podcasts. And it's the author Nathan Lowell that reads it, and I really got used to it. But then I went on to Audible, and it's on Audible. So I'm like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna pay for it. I downloaded them all, but it's not the author reading it anymore. They actually got someone else. So that took me a little bit of getting used to, because you, like everything, you get a voice stuck in your head. And the first book, it was like, this is just wrong. But now I'm 3 books in, it's like, okay, yeah, the characters make sense now. I can get used to it. I actually prefer them. So, but highly recommend that series if you get time. It's the Trader Tale series. I'll send you the link as well for that, Eugene. But
okay, cool.
Yeah, I got a lot going on, but that's that's one of the series that I can like just sit back and it's such a good story. Just it. I know it's in space and all that, but it's a story about people. So it doesn't really matter where it is. It could be on like a ship or spaceship. It doesn't matter. And it's really, really well written. So it's kind of one of my comfort books that I get into. I just need a lot of time. More than 17 hours, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, so I got a lot on the go right now.
The only thing I've read other than this book, which I had already read, is How to Be a Tutor, A Dawn to Dusk Guide to Tutor Life by Ruth Goodman. So it's nonfiction, obviously, and it's basically just them talking about the day-to-day life of normal people during that time period. I kind of thought it was going to be about the aristocracy and the tutors themselves, but it was actually not, and it was neat because they talked about how they made things, how they made, straw beds or beds out of different materials, and how they kept clean, and they weren't actually as dirty and gross as we think they were, and how they made perfumes and all these things. Like the author said that she had actually recreated most of the things that she wrote about and tried them herself, which is kind of cool. So she gave her perspective on that. But it was a quick read, like 4-hour listen. So that's all I've read. Did want to ask you guys, since everyone's on Audible, do you guys ever do the free, Audible first listens or Audible originals?
Every so often
there's some
I do.
good ones lately.
The one that was the other thing that I did listen to that I didn't list, which was, it was only like 4 hours long. More Bedtime Stories for Cynics by Nick Offerman.
I downloaded that, but I haven't listened to it yet. Is it good?
It's funny. It is definitely a funny listen.
I mean.
Yes, exactly. And he even says, like, he comes in, he narrates some of them, and then the other ones he just introduces. Patrick Stewart does one of them, and I'm just like, oh, hell, Patrick Stewart. Okay, whatever it is, I'm down for. Which, by the way, Sean, did you see that supposedly Data is coming back for Brent Spiner is coming back as Data? So
I have questions about that, but Brent Spiner is one of my favorite actors. Data was my favorite character, but in this series, the problem was Data ages. Like Brent Spiner can't pull off, and it'd be B4 really, not Data. But anyway, that's for another show.
That's for a different.
The other podcast.
It's incredible now. So.
Well, just, word for our listeners. If you have an Audible subscription, you get a free Audible Originals book every month. And I guess that one was good. I haven't listened to it yet, but.
Yeah, when you get a chance, it's not very long, but it's funny.
It looked funny, yeah. All right. That's all I've got. Thanks for listening, guys.
Is our next book, The Vexed Generation, comes out the time we're recording it, next month. That's going to be our next book, right?
Which book?
The Vexed Generation, the 6th book for Magic 2.0.
Oh, yeah.
Crap.
So I know. Okay.
I'm 2 books behind already.
I know it comes out mid-month, so I have a feeling if that is going to be our next book, we may have to push the show a little bit back, just depending on how quickly everyone gets through. So, but yeah, I think that's going to be the next one, and then I will try to get Mr. Meyer back on so we can talk about a wrap-up. So, yeah, because I'm nervous. I have high hopes.
Well, I'm glad everyone's finally starting to realize how awful a certain character is.
She is. Britt is
worst.
So
it's the worst.
It took me an entire listen back through to catch everything, but you're right. Because I wanted to believe the best, but yeah, it's just not. Yeah. So. What do you want me to wrap up real quick?
Okay. Well,
sorry, one last thing.
In this book, there's 2 recipes. They give you recipes. This book is based in 1882, so they give you a bread recipe, angel bread, and elderflower syrup. if you're so inclined.
Ooh.
It looks really complicated, and I won't be making it. But I just thought it was.
I was going to say, so tell us how it tastes.
Yeah. I've never read a book where like halfway through you're like, and there's the recipe about the bread they were talking about. Interesting.
So
Let's
my
try
question is, if there was an audiobook version of this, would they literally just stop the book halfway through, start
No.
reading the recipe, and be like,
That's kind of
"What's going on?"
they'd have to.
If you're so inclined to make this bread,
Yeah.
See Appendix A.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. Well, where can we find you guys online, Eugene?
You can follow my individual wacky adventure online at Optimus Gene on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I've got some big stuff in the works. I know my feed has been a little bit of a downer. Had some personal issues here recently. Hopefully, things are going to start looking up. But yeah, you can follow me on any one of those things. So yeah, if you want to see some cool 3D printed stuff that's coming out here pretty quick, come check it out.
Ray and Chris, where can we find you guys online?
The Reluctant Yeti on Instagram and Twitter, or you can find me here or Epically Geeky, Sustainably Geeky once in a while. Yeah.
Awesome. Chris?
Here, Epically Geeky. Forgot where I was for a moment. And then Sustainably Geeky, and on Instagram at Cedar College.
And Sean, where can we find you?
Well, you can sometimes find me on Marginally Geeky or the Mac Daddy of the Geeky Coven on Epically Geeky.
The Mac Daddy. Get out of here. And you can find me here on Marginally Geeky, Epically Geeky, and Sustainably Geeky. And we will be recording a new episode in a few days. And that will be a good one. We'll be talking about how to go green at work. Also on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Het's Gonna Be Me. And with that, everyone have a good night.